Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the AusCannaPodcast. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of pharmaceutical cannabis with one of the most respected leaders in the industry. Joining me is Michael Sassano, the CEO and Chairman of SOMAI Pharmaceuticals. With decades of experience, Michael has become a trailblazer in the global medical cannabis market, known for his visionary approach and dedication to innovation. This isn't just a conversation about the industry, it's about the passion, challenges, and opportunities that drive Michael's mission. So, let's get into it and welcome Michael to the show. Here we go. Board games or video games?
Board game.
What has been the most rewarding moment in your career so far?
I guess just recently I got a letter from an MS patient saying they are more normal now because of our medicine.
That's great. That's a very rewarding moment to get something like that. What's the most unique souvenir you've brought back from a trip?
Uh, a I guess a little a little I guess it was a it's not a real shrunken head, but it turns it was for some reason I ended up in my suitcase with a shrunken head, and I don't know who bought it, where it came from, but it ended up back in my bag. So, but it was turned out not to be like some apple or something.
Where were you?
I was down in the Caribbean.
I hope it wasn't bad juju that someone stuck into your bag to say,
I know,
"Oh,
I know. You're right. I've thought about it in a million ways since then. This is well over 2 decades ago.
that's a crazy thing." You just kind of like opened your bag when you got home and there it was, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So I guess I just when you just shot me that question, I remembered that for some reason.
That's awesome though. That's so random to bring home. All right.
Yeah.
What's your best advice you've received about leadership?
I just finished reading the new Elon Musk book, and it's not so new, a little older, his real biography, and he had in there that if you can't find efficiencies at minimum 20%, you're not doing your job. So I guess efficiency is the name of the game in our industry these days.
If you could switch lives with any celebrity for a day, who would it be?
Brad Pitt.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, he's single and good looking, so it seems like the right guy to go with.
Why not, right? So I have a listener submitted question, and this is from Lawrence in Townsville, Queensland. And he wants to know if you could design a theme park inspired by cannabis, what would be its main attraction?
Thailand just popped into my brain, so I'm going to have to say a whole social street that you just like a street where you go bars to bars, you go smoking and edible place to edible place along that street, like Bourbon Street, New Orleans, or
I was
things.
gonna say
So
like Fremont Street in Vegas or something like that.
Fremont Street, Vegas, that's my home. That's where I lived. I lived on Fremont.
Oh, did you?
Exactly.
Wow, I
Yeah.
bet you could tell some great stories about going to Fremont.
Right. It was just down my elevator.
I love it. I love it. Well, last question. If you could relive 1 year of your life, which one would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess this year is my year. I traveled 90% of the year. I believe I've gone around the world twice and a third time coming up. And so I'm a traveler. And so this last year was the number one travel year. I can't remember how many countries, but I'm guessing at least 30 countries and at least 100 plus flights.
That's you're putting some miles on for sure if you've been to
Almost,
30
almost
countries.
every 2 to 3 days, almost every, some days double flights. Yeah. I think it comes out to those numbers. I mean, you asked it and I'm thinking out loud, but it's pretty close to what I just said.
Yeah, is there I know I just said that the last question was the last question, but is there a country on your like to-do list that you really want to go to?
Oh, geez, there's so many. I think my last count was 78 countries. And so I got a lot to go. I keep repeating countries like, okay, I hit Australia 3 or 4 times in the last trailing 12 months, 4 times, I think. So if I keep repeating those, I can't get to the little ones that are outliers. So I got to get to the outlier countries. I would like to see Indonesia next time I'm out in Australia. I've never been there. So, and some of those Samoa and those little islands along that way. So there's a lot of country jumps I can do if I could block out 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Fiji, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm with you. One of
Fiji.
those small little like, yeah, good times,
Yeah,
good times.
exactly.
Yeah. That's fascinating that you're traveling around so much for sure. I love it. I love people that just have a passion for traveling, right? You get a new perspective on a lot of things when you travel, for
That's
sure.
exactly right. And also, I'm a foodie, so having each country has a different dish, or each city has a different dish. Or like when I go to Melbourne, I have, some of the best damn restauranting that I've ever seen. So there's always something in the travel that keeps me going.
So because you just said that you were a foodie, we have a strict rule when we travel, we make sure that we don't eat anywhere that we can eat back home. Do you kind of do the same thing when you're out traveling? Do you kind of push yourself out to try new food where the locals are kind of thing?
I think you have to. There are those countries where you got to hit their main dish. Some countries, I remember I was driving around. I took my 80-year-old parents through Europe driving, and I think it was Austria. They had Vienna. They had so many main dishes that we had to order every single one of them. So it was like 10 main specialties, Tappelsplits, this, that, and so. Sometimes it's a little daunting, but you get through it. But then there's like, okay, Melbourne. If I don't hit Chinatown, I mean, how am I going to say that I really didn't hit Melbourne right? So China's Chinese is everywhere, but sometimes Chinese in some places, like, wow, that's an experience.
I love it, Michael. I can just like as you're talking about it all, I'm starting to get hungry thinking about it.
I'm thinking about reservations tonight. Exactly.
Totally, we've gone down a little rabbit hole. Oh, good deal. So, for the listeners who don't know anything about you, do you mind introducing yourself for us, Michael?
Sure. My name is Michael Sassano. I'm the CEO of SOMAI Pharmaceuticals. We're one of a few vertically integrated cannabis multi-country operators, and we specialized in extracts, but we just recently bought a indoor cultivation facility, so we have it all.
Let's start at the beginning. Kind of what drew you into this industry?
In the beginning, it started off as an investment and also as a additional therapy for pain clinics that my partners who are doctors we had pain clinics, and so it started as a additional therapy and to get people off of opioids and things like that in the early days. Um, Most of the market in the U.S. was all the market in the U.S. in the beginning was medical, and still to this day, 1/3 of the market is medical, with 10 of the 32 billion being attributed to medical sales. So we started off on that side, and then some of the states that we were in, especially Nevada as an example, and California, those states changed over time, and I went from investment mode into operational and then started expanding and building more projects. And I ended up building with my brother 25 cannabis projects over the time. And the most recent is SOMAI Pharmaceuticals. And it's not just about building, it's also about acquiring. So along the way, even over there, we acquired many and had many mergers over the course of time. And SOMAI has done the same thing. We just recently bought a cultivation. So it's an ongoing 17 years of evolution in the cannabis industry.
I like it. So it was a slow build, right? Did you always have kind of like a vision for the company like at the start, or is it just kind of it slowly evolved over time?
No, SOMAI was definitely planned out. Even recently, we looked at the plan we laid out 5 years ago, and we've hit just about every KPI except for one, and that's still to come. It was a Q4 2024 KPI, and we'll hit it. And so it was all planned in a 16-step process and an expansion process. And even the portfolio was predominantly designed years ago. Of course, adjustments and many of them over time, but for the most part, we stayed the course. So it was a planned venture. I've seen enough of developing markets in the United States to understand what was going to happen in the global markets, and you have to keep an eye on everything.
Um, so you were saying, well, actually, let's start talking about, and I don't want to go down a huge rabbit hole with that, but with Trump coming into presidency there in January, do you think that they are gonna legalize, move federal legalization, so that way we're gonna start seeing more exports coming out of the states, or do you think that that's not gonna happen, that they're gonna kind of just drag their feet on it, kind of thing?
Oh no, I think for sure this is a massive positive. Um, and let's just have the history of it. There's two questions inside of there. One is the actual regulations, and one is what will happen in there. And so I'll take the first is the regulations. For sure, this is a disruptive group. The status quo has been, let's just call it out. Somebody's been tilting the scales on legalization. Probably big pharma. Can't find the fingerprints, but the DNA evidence is there. Nobody wants their pain relief cash cow to be dampened by a safer alternative. So okay, that's happening. And that's in the political realm where they can get one senator, a few senators, a few House people to squash every bill. But you'll see a lot of rumbling now of the DEA on the Schedule 3. Why the DEA is in charge of changing cannabis rules, who knows? Um, but that's going to happen. My predictions have been wrong for 17 years, but let's say I went from a 90%. I was about a few months ago. Then I was 10% when they announced they're going to kick the ball over to the after the election. Now rumblings are back again. I am positive that the political establishment that's coming in now is there for change and to move things forward. So Schedule 3, no brainer. Some decriminalization. Why is that not? Everybody knows that's a smart thing to do. So I think that's going to be a layup. And I think safe banking to help the corporations and the taxable burden to bring product to the people at better prices is going to be good. Now, on the other side, will that be an export crop to countries? The answer is no, and I'll tell you why. Structurally, they don't have GACP ratings, GMP ratings, or any standardization ratings. Because it was a state to state product, it's basically restaurant grade things. Although we conform to the same exact rules as GMP, cleanliness, air handling units, all of the SOPs, it's still very far off from the real rating of a pharmaceutical GMP rating. So I equate it to restaurant grade because it's a state rule OSHA that has been followed in most rules. So structurally, I don't see how they're going to be able to export, and I don't believe they'll break down the state by state borders anytime in the future because there is a big belief, not just the Trump administration, but about all the politicians, that the states should have their autonomy and choice. Some states some states may want different rules. Some are medical, like Florida, and some are recreational, like California. However, you disperse it is irrelevant as long as you provide access. And I believe that's going to be a federal thing is access to, at minimum, medical cannabis.
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think at the end of the day, the new administration coming in is business oriented at the very least. And I think for them to move forward with federal legalization, if nothing else, you already touched on it. It's that safe banking, right? At the end of the day, it's safe banking. And now these companies that are literally running around with wads of cash because they can't bank with it can now put that money into banks and they can actually do something with it. And so I do think at the end of the day, they will move fairly quickly towards some sort of federal banking system legalization that way, whether that does fall into what you're saying, whether it's just medical or recreational and leaving the states to kind of sort themselves out, yet to be seen. But I do think it will be something that we're going to see those companies being able to, again, get in with the federal banks and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think that will reverberate throughout the global cannabis communities around the world. They need to take a stand, and after that 252 HHS report this year came out, I mean, you don't get any better advocation than the FDA of the United States saying cannabis is safe, safer than alternative sleeping pills and pain relief, and safest for adverse reactions, plus good for 15 indications. I mean, if that isn't a testament to your population should have proactive access rules for medical cannabis, I don't know what is.
Yeah, no, again, I completely agree with you. So at the beginning there, you were saying that you guys do that you started with the extractions. So is that basically just oils, or I'm gonna throw it out there, I'm a big fan of nano emulsions. Is that something that you guys are into? Like when you're talking extractions, what exactly are you guys doing?
Yeah, so it's pretty well known that we have the largest extract portfolio in the global medical cannabis universe, over 100 products. Actually, I think we're at 138 now, put through stability programs. And so it's not just your oral drops. We don't have one oral drop. We have 18 versions of oral drops for different indications and different feelings. It's gel caps, 24 different versions of gel caps from a 1 mg all the way up 2.55, 10, high THC balanced, high CBD. Then we have the faster acting formula, which acts in your lymphatic and oral gums, 8 different versions. And so we made all different kinds of products, including, as your favorite is, nano emulsion, which was 3 weeks ago, just went into industrial production. And so we suspended 18 mgs of THC in 1 ml per 1 ml
Yeah.
at 96 and 140 nanometers. So we have two different versions depending on the viscosity of the excipient mix. So that if you could get a more viscous thing, it can be lower, and if it has to be in an oral drop, okay, it'll be around 140 or something like that, but still quite a better performance.
Not gonna lie, sir, I almost want to stand up and do a little happy dance because I've been devastated when my nano emulsion that I've been using for almost 2 years got discontinued. And so it's forced me back into oils, and the oils are so, if nothing else, oils are unpredictable. And for me, the best thing about nano emulsions is that they're like clockwork. Once you figure out your dose and how to take it, it's okay. I can set the watch and this is when it's gonna, and it's predictable, right? Whereas I feel like with oils, it's like, well, what did you eat today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The unpredictability, bad taste. There's so many nano emulsions at 300 nanometers. I saw a few. It's not you got to be under 200 nanometers. You have to have a good taste. You need that performance and you need consistency. So, the way we performed it is it's all single strain extracts we made, and batch one is the same as batch 1000. And we pride ourselves that the actual product tastes different than what you're currently have in the market, because we took the norm for where the U.S. markets were trending for their patients. And so we made early versions and more advanced versions to educate the market. It's quite It's hard when you have naive markets mixed with more mature markets like Australia. And so you have to balance those two things and present something for up and newcomers, Spain, France, others. And then advanced countries, Australia, UK, Germany, where you have multiple choices of products.
I do feel like something like a nano emulsion really does boil down to education. I think that if more people understood the science behind it, that they'd be more willing to try it. And then once they've tried it and realized, oh man, this is like I just said, this is predictable. This is again, it's not a matter of what I had to eat. Did I have enough fat in my system? Did I this? Did I that? I don't know. For me personal, from a medical perspective, when I need my medication to work, I need it to work when I'm taking it, not 2 hours later when I'm at a parent teacher conference talking about you know what I mean? Like, no, that's bad times. When I take it, I want it to work, like as with any other medication, you take it and you want it to work within a short amount of time. And like I said, I do feel like more people would be into nanoemulsions if they got the education behind it. Is that something that you guys um that you find personally, like that you guys is a struggle getting the education out there so people are more willing to try other things?
Yeah, definitely. There's a limitation on how a manufacturer can educate the market. We have to generally rely on the doctors and the clinics and the groups out there to educate, and we get to educate those doctors. So our connection between the patient's education, is limited, right? But research definitely does it. So actually, just yesterday, we were going over the in vivo and in vitro trials, for the nanoemulsion and the faster-acting excipient. Both of them are two different products, um, and so you have to prove it and show it. But then you'll see like a research report. We just fit. It's all of our research takes 1 to 2 years to get out, so it takes always a while. But we just had another research report that came out based on the entourage effect, so terpenes. So nanoemulsions are very particular with education because your dosages are going to change, and somebody needs to understand how to tell people how to dose those properly due to the absorption rates.
Do you find that um are there significant challenges when you're trying to balance like compliance with innovation when you're going through like R&D when you're in such a regulated industry?
Yeah, I think, we were a little lucky. We were able to make so many products because we used a three-step process. So we were able to take the data of where people were, look at where people are today in Europe. So where were they? Where are they now in the U.S. For their preferential performance? What terpene mixes, as an example? What devices um, of ingestion are they using? What exactly is the delivery mechanisms that people prefer? And then you had to go backwards and look at each market individually in Europe. So you're still at an oil stage, or you're at a vaporizer stage, or you're at a gel cap stage. They're all different stages of all different countries. So, one of the things that we had to look at was, all right, well, let's make this product and see if it works, because we have to change it for pharmaceutical expectations, so that we can make that in the US and have trials with people over there, and make sure it works. Then we bring it to the University of Lusofna, who would make the SOPs and prove up the product in a pharmaceutical environment, a lab scale environment. And then we bring it over to our facility, which is extremely large equipment made for volume. And so we would then prove it out in industrial batches and put them into stability. And so we also own our own lab, so we control our data. And so when you have a process where you're throwing darts when you're making the products rather than spending years R&Ding it only to get a failure in the industrial range, it makes it for a much better way to launch and bring products to the market.
Do you think that there's anything like in the other markets that are emerging, Germany, Spain, France, is there anybody that's really kind of taking the lead?
Germany is surging straight through the roof. We're number one right now, extract in self-payer market there. So we made the product affordable for people in the self-payer range because the majority of extracts were for more serious conditions, and they were in an insured market format. And so um, for sure, what you read in the news, our taste is better, and our product is more consistent than everyone else's. So, what you're seeing now is Germany advancing in extract sales because now they have choices of better products. And I think we're on our third launch of innovations in that country alone in a very short amount of time. And you're seeing volumes. This is $1 billion market somewhere by mid to late 2025. It's trending there very nicely. We just saw some data come out yesterday. The volumes have doubled since last quarter and doubled since the quarter before. So that's on track for one of the most explosive medical markets today in the global community.
Do you think Germany's taking off because less of a stigma there? Or do you think it's just they've seen it kind of take off in other places and so they're more willing to embrace it? Do you think there's anything unique about Germany that's why it's pulling
Yeah.
ahead?
Regulatory change in April took cannabis off the narcotics list. So that removed the stigma for doctors to prescribe it and allowed for any GP to prescribe it for almost any reason. So if it's stress or anxiety or sleep, indications that weren't generally accepted in let's call it harder medical markets and then lesser hard medical markets. So as the access barrier to doctors being able to prescribe so people can try a safer alternative to what they're currently using or use it because they heard it might work for a feeling that they have. Once you remove this barrier and you remove the potential of issues with a narcotic, doctors are free to prescribe and patients are more willing to say, look, I see that this is something that is not harmful for me. I would like to try. And so you're seeing even people come off the illicit market because you have lots of choices. So all of that is funneling up into one big movement for Germany, and it's really a wake-up call for surrounding countries to loosen up their rules. And you're seeing that now. You're seeing almost every major country just in the Europe alone addressing the issues, whether it's Ireland would look like they're going to put pain. They only had multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, cancer, three. Now they want to add pain and make potentially other categories to open up access for people. And so, whatever it is, whatever that country's current regime is, opening up that access and loosening it is happening, and it's happening at a rapid pace. Spain just came online, and they're going to have their rules in place, which is quite counterintuitive considering you could walk into a social club, that doesn't have the legal product. However, you can't get a legal medical product until now.
Um, we were talking before we started recording that you're in Portugal. So what does it look like there?
Yeah, I mean, Portugal, this is for sure the epicenter for producing and exporting cannabis in Europe. I think there's over 40 licensed groups here. I haven't looked recently, but I think it's got to be well over that, maybe even verging on 50. And so definitely from the export purposes, it is. But from the access point of view, there's much to be desired. Currently, the access is restricted to a market authorization dossier. And this is a 200-page dossier, just like any medicine would be. Not many people can make these. And in fact, I believe I'm writing a piece on it now. There's only three manufacturers and that have been accepted under ACM. We've applied for 4 of 16 right now. And so this is a very long process. But on the other side, there's no real promotion for the doctors to educate and to push things forward. It's not opened up to prescriptions as much as other countries are. But I expect over time, logic will come and they will move their positions also eventually. Because just recently I went in and I had a back spasm, and they tried to give me oxycodone. I was like, you got the wrong person in the wrong industry to try to push oxycodone on me. I don't think I'll be doing that. And I gave a little chastisement to the doctor for prescribing it. I was like, I hope you don't do that to every client.
I was going to say, what are some of those misconceptions that you encounter in the pharmaceutical cannabis industry? Just basically that, you know, doctor's first choice, here, take the oxycodone.
Yeah, no, I mean they're like ingrained in that stuff. So it's like there's nothing that can be done. And yeah, look, that stigma. I've seen it from decade plus ago in the United States to being here for now 4 years in Europe. The same stigma exists. Some doctors look down on us. Oh, there's no science behind that. And I point out to them, well, there's 30,000 research reports. There's a study by the HHS that checked 6 million patients and 30,000 prescribing physicians over 2 decades in the U.S. The Canadians put out a great report, 200 plus page medical report every year for the last 5 years on the medical, every detail of medical. I disagree with you. There's not enough medical stuff out there. And I presented to one of the Spanish ministers, those documentations and had them prepared for him to say, look, I think you're reading this wrong. There's plenty of documentation.
If cannabis was legalized like globally overnight, would that change your company's trajectory at all, or would you guys still kind of keep doing what you're doing?
I think we've designed it for that. So our main thesis is, although for the slowest moving regulatory industry of the world, we're the fastest moving industry ever. All of us work 24/7. I don't know one person in cannabis that doesn't say I have no time. So it's doing it. When it's going to be fully enveloped is going to be the question mark. But I have no doubts whatsoever that one of my main theses of this year is the global medical cannabis explosion is happening here and now. It was on its way. Now it's in the thrust of it, and you have to be prepared for it. So the facility is capable of producing enough extract, actual finished dosage form extract to supply the whole entire global markets, 500,000 plus bottles they consume a year in 2 months of production. So we're ready for it. We just want access. It doesn't matter financially for us. Of course, it'll be great, but for the most part, we want access for the patients, and that's what we fight for.
You were saying earlier that you guys just acquired a cultivation, was it a cultivation site, or you're getting into cultivation now?
No, we're already produced, delivered to Germany months ago, and when we bought it in production. So yeah, we decided we didn't want to prejudice against the flower smokers. That's not a part of the inclusion of our industry approach. We wanted to give them something great, so we bought an indoor flower facility. It boasts non-irradiated indoor flower. We also have picked up global brands for Europe and delivered on it, cookies and other global flower brands that we brought to the European market. So we want to be on the cutting edge of indoor facilities, non-irradiation, where possible. Australia is a little difficult, and it's just something we don't understand, irradiation from the world we come from. Just get your microbes down. So, and I try to explain to people in the US we're counted on dead and live microbes. So we're at the ultimate cleanliness level, even though we're not regulated pharmaceutically. But here it's a pharmaceutical indoor EU-GMP facility, and we've been delivering regularly for months now.
Are you looking to bring any flowers here to Australia, or is that just basically you're staying kind of in the EU with your flowers for now?
Nope, we gotta be equal to everybody in every country. So we're not going to not support the Australian patient community. I think there's really wonderful companies in Australia. I think they do a great job. I think they have great products, and we have our place there too. And we want to bring. I think we just sent out today a 25 strains for the Australians to choose from, the Australian sales teams to choose from. And we definitely will be bringing. I think we just brought the vaporizer units there over the last few months, so those should be hitting in December. And then we'll bring the flowers. I believe it's February, so we should have our launch by then.
Nice. So right around the corner then.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's all stage multiple. We launch new products every few months. So, with such a big portfolio, it takes a while to explain it to everybody. But the doctors now are getting it. We deliver exactly when we say we're going to deliver. The products launch with the right research or the right documentation, PK advice in some cases. And so it's all there, and we all bring it at an affordable price. We don't believe that medicine should cost you an arm and a leg.
Do you think it's easier to run like an extraction facility with like the laboratory and all of that, or it's easier over on the cultivation side? Like, which one would have been the harder one to set up as far as, I guess, jumping through all the hoops to get it up and going? Because it's two very different. Well, I mean, one, you've got plants and lights and depending on how you're growing soil, the hydroponic, whatnot. And then the other one is literally like clean, you know what I mean? Pharmaceutical. In my mind, that's like guys in lab coats, very clean, very sterile, very like completely different environments. Which one was easier to set up?
Yeah, definitely the manufacturing is the easiest to set up. As you point out, it's equipment, science, it's about technology. He who has the most technology makes the best product. And so, of course, you need a little bit of creativity. You need some know-how, obviously. But that is the place where if I wish I would have always stayed in life. Grows, okay, I love the flower. Nobody doesn't love the flower, but um, the issues even on the indoor that you get, it's like Jumanji. What new thing are we experiencing today in the wilderness, and how do we overcome it? And will those dice roll, and we're going to get to something relaxing, or is it going to be an alligator's bite, coming after us? And so, grow is grow. You got to be passionate about it because there is no easy sailing ever in growing, ever. And so, even with the most pristine environment, indoor, everything, every environmental perfectly timed, every day there's a new issue. You got to be on top of it. So that my heart goes out to all growers around the world. I am on your side forever.
I definitely think growers don't get enough love, man. It is tricky. And
No.
you're right. You're right. Even in a controlled environment where you're controlling the light and everything else, so many things are going on and so many things come into play. Whereas, yeah, if you're just kind of in a sterile room and everything's clean and you're only kind of messing with a couple of things, I don't want to say it's considerably less stressful because I find being with the plants that's not very stressful when you're just kind of standing and being around them. It's when you're actually doing stuff with them that they become, a challenge.
Yeah, no, look, they're great to be around. It's like a child, right? They're funny, they're things. But then if you give them the wrong piece of food in their mouth, they're going to spit it up on you. And it's just like, I love them, but hey, okay, I get it. I didn't feed you right. I got it. I'll improve. Just please don't start crying.
I think that's why I like going to visit farms, right? Like I like to go, oh, that's a beautiful plant. Oh, I like that setup over there. Oh, R&D, you guys are awesome. Oh, it's great. And then I get to go home with like, oh, lovely plants and good times. And I don't have to deal with any of like the potential meltdowns that happen after I leave, right? Very much like a
That's
child.
great. Yeah, that's the aunt and uncle theory. I love you guys, but I'm giving you back to your parents to take care of you. Let me know when it reaches a shelf.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, what is your long-term vision in terms of like innovation and market reach? Are you guys kind of like hoping to be basically in every little market, accessible to everybody?
Oh, yes, for sure. We're in 10 countries now. You'll see a new announcement on a few countries coming out very shortly. We continually announce new countries. It's one of our main themes, even the small ones, like Ireland, a very small market. You're talking 60 patients. And a few months ago, we announced that we put in the time and effort to register there because it's a 6 to 9 month process. And somebody said, well, that's not going to bring you a lot of money. I go, but it's going to bring me happiness that I'm taking care of these patients. And yes, our name is there and they deserve the best products. So I am going to spend some money there. We're not bringing 100 products. We're going to bring them one or two good products and let them see if that works for their indications. Because these people they have very serious indications and they need high performance products. So we'll keep expanding like that, um, big, small, advanced or not. And we have the most advanced products for the most advanced markets, and we have the beginning version for the more naive markets. And so we want to be there for all of the people, and we want to walk them up from the beginning to the end. And ultimately, they'll end up with, who knows, oral gums or vaporizers or soft gel caps or rosins or a resin or a concentrate. I don't know, but we have it for you.
I love it. I don't know, but we've got it for you. Is there a country out there that's not on the radar now, but have kind of like a gut feeling that maybe in the next 3 to 5 years might be a country that could be going this way, could be interested in medicinal cannabis?
You want like one of those, you never thought about it, but
Kind
it
of
could be.
like, what's your sleeper country that's going to come out of nowhere in the next 3 to 5 years? It's going to be like, you know what? Arms open, we're embracing it, bring it in.
Okay. Well, these could get controversial, but I'll let it rip. And so one of my ones I'm looking at, which has made already a rumbling towards it, is Indonesia.
Okay. And
So
why do you think Indonesia?
it's a very strict country, I believe, and especially religious wise, how they look at it. They have signaled their openness to medical cannabis. And I believe that that kind of a change, or somebody like the UAE who may say CBD or possibly, medical cannabis, opening, that this could open up a population in the Islamic world, and these two might have the possibilities of really opening up demographics. We're all pretty aware, North America, South America, Europe is on a very liberal path. And these are all very common, and we expect Europe to be almost all member countries. But it's those outliers that could change the world. And so, to really open up access and to say, look, okay, we are accepting that this is safer for our population and a better alternative than what's in the market today. I don't know a religious person that can read their research and say, I think people should get off oxycodone and go to cannabis for their pain relief. I think this is a smart way to guide my population. So I think those are spoilers that could happen, positive spoilers that could happen and create something that we did not expect, and beyond what the more liberal countries in the world are doing.
I see what you're saying. It's a little risky because they are
It's risky.
somewhat conservative, but you're right. I mean, if I do feel like that's one of those countries that if they did kind of tip over just a little, even if it's just a small little sliver of opening it up medicinally, kind of like we did here in Australia, it was very, very hard at the very beginning. Like it was very regulated, only a certain couple conditions that you could get it. And if Indonesia were to open that door just a little, I do think other countries would follow for sure. Why not?
Yeah, look, Japan is going to legalize their CBD, albeit with very low THC, but fine. I mean, that's the beginning step, right? Like Australia is still a very big CBD market, mostly because of archaic driving laws that haven't changed in order to understand the difference of impairment versus presence. And I just wrote a piece recently saying, okay, nobody agrees to somebody driving impaired for whatever reason, alcohol, cannabis or oxycodone even, just don't drive impaired. But presence alone is not the right answer either. So, these markets start at that CBD level and then they say, okay, well, medically guided by a doctor, okay, here's your first three indications. Okay, now we add pain. Now we add all these other things like stress and anxiety and sleep and stuff like that. And that umbrella and bouquet opens up and opens up and opens up. And yeah, I caveated in the beginning, this is a challenging one, but I laid that bomb out there.
I liked it though. Just because you brought it up, do you think we'll ever have a test for impairment? Because I don't think we ever will.
I think it's, as I tried to point out, there is ways of trying to quantify it, but all seem to fail when you look at the actual metabolites that go into cannabis. So as my dosaging may go up over time in order to get the same relief, and that dosaging will have more in my blood, but that's what's needed in order to combat whatever it is I'm trying to combat. And so presence alone does not will not be able to a presence level like an alcohol level. If you blow, you're going to end up at zero point 0.1 or whatever the number is. Well, if you're building a tolerance level towards this, then okay, presence numbers do not work. So I think it's very difficult. I think the world has to come to some at least reasonable agreement, and we may not all agree on it, but presence alone is definitely not the answer.
I'm with you. I think it's weird that it's like here in Australia that it's a zero kind of like it's in your system, you're done kind of thing. It's a zero tolerance.
Exactly.
And I don't want to be like, that's not fair. That's not what I want to say. But I struggle with it in the sense that, when it comes to like what you're saying, other painkillers or alcohol or all this other stuff, we look at individuals and we kind of give them the benefit of the doubt that we're like, hey, yes, you can have this and you're a responsible adult, so we trust that you won't get behind the wheel and be an idiot, right? We trust that. We give you the benefit of the doubt, but it's for whatever reason when it comes to medicinal cannabis patients, when it comes to cannabis, it comes to THC, it's like a straight up hell no across the board. There's no trust there. We can't know. You're just irresponsible. And it's very frustrating, right? And I just, because you said that you had just written this paper, which is why I'm curious, because the world does seem to be hung on this. We need an impairment test, but I don't know. I just feel in my heart of hearts, it's a sticky one, and I don't know how to nail down impairment.
Yeah, well, I mean, look on our website under news. It's just recently was released, and I showed the different states in the United States that have different rules. Talk about Germany, talk about Australia, talk about the UK, different things that are going on in their markets. And the resounding conclusion, even the research itself, is presence alone is just wrong. You just can't just do it based on that. And I think people know that, but then, politicians trying to make laws. It's a very difficult thing because they are, I believe, in their heart trying to protect the population. But this has to change like right now. At least presence has to change, and there has to be some guiding light more than that. And even like I'll give you an example in Nevada. They said, okay, you can't get a driver's license if you have you have to get a prescription of 500 mg's of oxycodone. So they said, all right, well, that's the rule we're going to make. So people just got 250 mg prescriptions. It took two of them. And so it's like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
no, you're
I
right
mean, when you're trying to figure out, they're in so much pain, these people up at these. I'm not saying it's right they should be taking that amount. It could probably kill a horse. But the point is they're going to find a way around it to get the pain relief and get to work. whatever way you're looking at it. So make reasonable assessments at minimum, what is best for a population.
I'm with you. I'm with you. 100% I'm with you. It's one of those things. You're right. Politicians sometimes try to make blanket rules, which seem like they'll work, but then, when like you just gave a perfect example, there little work around here, little work around there. And so it is
Yeah.
hard to figure out how to come up with a test and how to, make everybody happy, right? What is it? You try to make everybody happy and nobody's happy.
Yeah, no, I mean, day one when those rules went in, they saw a spike in 250 mg dosages and 500 mgs went down. It was like, okay, you know,
It's almost like, no brainer. Of course that was going to happen.
but at least they tried, right? I'm not saying that all their tries are wrong, but okay, there are issues out there in the world, but this maybe is one they got to think of a little bit deeper.
I would agree with you. Where do you see the global cannabis industry in the next 10 years? And what role do you think you guys are going to be playing in that future?
Yeah, for sure. My continuing theme of the year is the medical global explosion. Medical global explosion is here and now. More countries are going to be added. More countries even this year are going to be added. 2025, more countries are already in works of legislation to add access to it. I think as you keep going year by year by year, it's just more and more countries. I was doing a piece on all the countries, the markets where cannabis is legal. And I thought it was only like 15, 20. It turns out just the top 20 alone, there was Jamaica was a surpriser there for me. I knew they had a big cannabis tourism illicit market, but I didn't think the legal medical market was so big, and that was made the top 20 list. And then I kept going. I think I ended up with 40 or 50 countries that had legal access. I think it was 40 something. And so, anyways, the point is that even surprised me. And so I was like, wow, like we did a deal in Costa Rica. And I was like, all right, great place to go do due diligence. But I then understood that that was a launching point for South America. And so, like, even me who's watching it every day, gets surprised by actually the access opening up around the world silently and surely and slowly and developing. So 10 years from now, let's say it's going to be rare countries that block it. There'll be a few very strict countries that will have blocking on it. And okay, they'll always exist. Maybe North Korea will be one of them. But, that's pretty much,
Maybe.
my prediction would pretty much probably be accurate there. But, it's going to be a very few amount left in 10 years because it just won't make any sense under a global regime. You can't look at your neighbor and say, okay, that's wrong. You may be able to say, look, Thailand went a little bit crazy, fair assessment. The chicken guy was trying to sell me cannabis at night when I was going for my chicken sandwich. So as much as I love as much as I love my chicken sandwich, I don't really want to buy cannabis from my sandwich guy. But I did appreciate that he opened up access in the middle of the night to me in case I needed that. So, but still, it's a little overwhelming of an experience. But okay, I love it. It's probably the most interesting experiment I've ever seen in opening up access in my life. But okay, we're going to have maybe a migration across the world of medical and then more advanced countries.
I gotta agree with you. I do think in 10 years that it it it'll be few and far between. The countries will be few and far between that haven't moved. And I'm not saying that it'll be legalized everywhere, but I do believe more countries will have medical. I believe that more countries will embrace what it can bring to the table and they'll open up the market for it, for sure.
Yeah, they have to. They have to. It's common sense now, and the pillars of arguments are getting chopped out every year. You know, oh, this is the reason why chopped out. Oh, this is our new chopped out. Eventually, I'm going to say it. big pharma can't tilt it anymore because common sense will prevail and the people's will prevail. It's the more majority of people do approve it in most countries. So you can't keep that underwater for too long. I mean, they've done a great job of it, but it eventually will come out.
I agree 100%. I feel like that's a great, like, positive thing to end on, Michael. I'm like, yep, we will all eventually get there. Um,
Yeah.
like I said, we've covered a lot of topics, but is there one thing, one call of action, one negative information that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I think it's you have to support your local cannabis communities to get more access and better rules, like we pointed out with the driving sensible ways for doctors to be able to prescribe. It's about access for patients and opening up the demographics that need it, getting the word out there. This starts on a local level, but also remember out there when we're dealing with multi-countries. There's you may have your woes inside your internal countries, but out there's countries that aren't even allowed to get cannabis, and it needs to start locally and expand outwards so that everybody can promote access because everybody who's using cannabis is using it for something that makes them feel better. And so, doesn't everybody around the world deserve that? And please start locally and keep pushing and it'll go around the world.
I love it, Michael. I say it all the time. Yeah. Quality of life. And who am I to say that you can't have a better quality of life?
Yep.
Yep.
It's an inalienable right.
100%. Thank you so much, Michael. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope to get back to Australia. I think I'm coming in January.
Oh, excellent. January in Australia.
End,
Hot, hot,
end
hot.
of January. End of January. Just at the tipping point. When it's still a little quiet and I can go there and get some work done before the madness starts.
Oh, I like it. Oof. Hopefully the weather is gorgeous for you when you come to visit.
It always is.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the AusCanna podcast. A big thank you to Michael Sassano for joining me and sharing such valuable insights into the pharmaceutical cannabis industry. If you've enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to leave a 5-star review or share this episode with a friend. It really helps more listeners discover the show. And hey, as always, I want to hear from you. If you have a fun or intriguing question for the rapid fire segment, submit your ideas via email or social media, and you'll win an exclusive AusCanna goodie pack. It really is that simple. Until we meet again, friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. And remember, even the best ideas were once scribbled on napkins. So keep dreaming big and never run out of napkins.